Welcome to the Nate and Dorin podcast. We are professional videographers based in Vancouver, Canada, and we are here to talk about relevant topics within the video and media industry. I'm Nate, and I run Nate Dixon Media.
And I'm Dorin, the videographer, solo entrepreneur offering video production services. And today we are going to discuss if there is one holy grail camera that is the be all end all of cameras. Maybe you're thinking it's going to be something fancy or something expensive, maybe what Hollywood uses. Um, I don't know. It's a very contentious, if that's a English word, Nate.
Yeah, that's an
Yeah.
English word.
Yay, ESL pass for today. Um, I'm using big words at a late hour, so I'm very proud of myself.
Mm.
This is a great start. Yeah, every single videographer group or post or people I know when it comes to talking about gear, oof, there's so many opinions. Um, so what do you think, Nate? Do you think there is such a thing as the perfect camera? Do we currently have it, or is it coming in the near future?
Oh man. First of all, I'm sick of those posts where, which camera should I buy? I'm just getting started. It's like
Guys, I
either do
have I
you
have my first wedding book. What camera should I get? What?
it's like, wow, what a loaded question.
Exactly.
It's either, do your own research, you know? And if you don't know anything about how to even research cameras, talk to somebody. Don't just like give ask for suggestions when everybody else has absolutely zero context what you're doing,
Yeah,
you know?
100%.
It's
Yeah.
like, are you live streaming? Do you need it to record longer than 30 minutes at a time? Do you need XLR inputs? What kind of like what's the audio
Yeah.
situation? There's a bajillion factors.
Resolution, frame rate.
Oh my gosh, like so yeah. Everybody who asks that question, I I just have to scroll past it really quickly. Otherwise, I
But
just get frustrated.
yeah, and everyone does, and I 100% sympathize with that. But I also sympathize with the person asking the question because there are so many cameras and they all do slightly different things and they're all produced to be good. No one's like intentionally producing like, "Oh, this is the good camera and we're going to produce 10 other crappy ones," right?
Mm,
So how do you narrow down and answer that question? Is it How about this? Is it a universal answer or is it a subjective answer?
yeah, I'd think it's a situational answer to alter your subjective. I'd say yes, it's subjective because it's based on the situation. And you know what?
Hmm.
There's now more than ever so many different types of cameras. You've got like, first of all, your smartphone. Everybody's got a smartphone, and those cameras and like the algorithms that they're using are next level. They're getting really really good. Um,
Yeah, phones have like built-in stabilization and like multiple lenses now.
Multiple lenses. They're like adjusting the exposure in different parts of the image so that they can mimic like raw, like high dynamic range type shots, like keeping
I
the
think
sky
my
not
phone
blown
films
out.
8K and my camera does. I can't remember. Hmm.
Yeah. Um, and I'm sure we've talked to before, like they might say 8K or 4K, but depending on the sensor size and the bit rate,
I don't know if you can see that. Uh,
uh,
Wait, oh, it went
tell
away.
us what it says.
Like at the top there.
Keep as soon as it focuses it. Okay, I see 8K. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've got 8K filming on like the tiniest sensor there. Um, but yeah, it does show that like phone cameras are getting really, really good. So depending on your needs, that could be the perfect camera for what you're doing. They're also very inconspicuous. Nobody looks at you twice if you're just holding a phone. Like I
Yeah, because
remember,
everyone selfies and like does little videos. Well,
yeah,
how can someone tell the difference between you and oh you're producing a documentary or a corporate video? 'Cause there is such
yeah,
a thing as corporate. iPhoneography or something like that. Smart phonography. Sounds dirty.
Smartphoneography, yeah. Like live concert videos have gotten so much better because now you can't deny, like before you would like see somebody carrying a big DSLR and you're like, ah, can't carry that in, no outside photos or video. And now people, you can't deny them from bringing in their phone,
Hmm.
and they can take amazing like 4K 60, you know, full stereo audio that's not distorted, and it's like really good. Um, so now, if you enjoy watching concert footage, it's so good now compared to what it was 5, 10 years ago.
Mm, true.
I say smartphone is like the perfect camera for like bootleg concert videos.
Mm.
That's a great use for them.
And
Maybe
and
that's not.
also I guess another circumstance might be budget for some people. Like let's say small businesses, like tiny
Mm,
businesses, small businesses as in less than 10 employees. Um, they might jump on, hey, does anyone have like the latest smartphone? Yes, okay. Learn how to do videos and social media content because smartphones directly post to social media, and social
mm,
media software platforms allow you to trim and caption videos. So sometimes that's enough. Like some of my clients that come to me, I ask them, have you had video work done before? They say, no, we've never worked with a videographer. But when I look at their social media, they've got videos on there. I'm like, well, oh, you guys did this your own. Oh, okay. So it
mhm,
is doable, depending on how what are your needs and what is your budget and what do you have available. Because thinking back at what did we have when we were like fooling around, like hobby wise? Like what did you film? Remember in episode 2, the blast from the past? What
mm.
did you film those like old videos on?
I think my friend Dan, he specifically asked for a camera to make videos for like Christmas or something, and we got this like Canon PowerShot something. It was like a
Mm-hmm.
really cheap little zoom lens camera that could only record like 12 minutes at a time for like the SD card that he got with it. And you could choose between like the full resolution and 15 frames per second or like 360p at 30 frames per second. It was like
Wow.
absolutely terrible specs, but that kind of was our our camera, and
Yeah.
that's what I learned to shoot with, and just learned to edit on the free Windows Movie Maker at the start
Mm-hmm.
until
So definitely if you're a hobbyist or you're just like an amateur or a beginner, um, a video enthusiast, there you go. Your phone is good enough. For you, your phone is your perfect camera
hmm
because it allows you to explore making videos and being creative. And I mean, me growing up, like the only videos that were on phone, what like 15 years ago were garbage. But I still have a few clips for nostalgia's sake, but they're so pixelated it's unusable. Had I grown up with smartphones though, oh man, I probably would have done more videos. Because what I used in my oldest videos was like my parents' point and shoot camera. Yeah.
mm-hmm. And there's also like additional apps you can get for your phones that will record with more custom controls.
Mm-hmm.
So now
Yeah.
if you just pull out your video, like sure you can adjust the exposure and like lock the focus, but sometimes there's more controls you want to have, like ISO, aperture, turn stabilization on and off. So there's like good apps for like just a couple bucks sometimes that can like
Mm-hmm.
unlock that extra level of getting the most from the sensor of your phone. Uh, Maybe it'll be bigger file size or whatnot, but you can really squeeze the most you can out of something you already have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But again, because it's situational, there's obviously a lot of downfalls with phones, like the fact that you can't like change the lens and get a proper zoom on it. So like, yeah, you're at a concert, you film wide shot, or the phone has a little zoom, but the more you zoom in, the more pixelated it gets.
Yeah, like some phones have the different uh, preset zoom levels with the different lenses,
Hmm.
but you're right.
It's
Like,
it's a very jarring like go from one to the other. Like
yeah,
if you start going into professional work, it's not gonna cut it.
yeah, and the sensor size is tiny. Like, sure, it might shoot
Yeah,
4K or 8K, but when you're filming on the tiniest little sensor compared to like a mirrorless sensor,
low
it's
light.
gonna look really compressed. It's gonna be worse in low light. Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, and
those are some of
also
the big
to
drawbacks.
be honest, it's also using your phone battery. So your phone batteries, you know, if you need to use it for the rest of the day, you're not gonna be able to do a 8 hour run and gun with your phone unless you have like power banks and or swapping phones or actually you know what? Here's an interesting application. I used my smartphone. Oh, I think I have a picture here somewhere. I don't have it prepared though. I'll try and multitask and talk while I look for it. But I had a client during COVID that they wanted me to live stream from the camera. And indoors, we did do that. But when we had to film the outdoor stuff, like I can't run the cable. I didn't have power. I wasn't gonna like I was gonna operate off of camera battery and record internally, and I wasn't able to hook it up to a laptop to live stream it to the guy, the director guy. But what I ended up doing is I used my um like the hot shoe on top of the camera to put a like a phone adapter thing. What do you call it? Like a mount.
Okay.
And I had my phone on top of the camera. So the director, I was live streaming from my phone using data and my phone's battery, and it worked. You know what?
Hmm.
We didn't. It wasn't actual footage that we used, but it served a purpose on set. Not to mention, I also used my phone for behind the scenes.
Hmm.
Have you ever used your smartphone, for that kind of stuff?
Hmm. Yeah, I have used it for behind the scenes. It's really handy to just quickly whip out and take some pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Like you say, it's great being hooked up to social media right away. So you can kind of help your followers feel like they're getting a glimpse into your world. I think that I really enjoy seeing that with other videographers that I follow. So I try and keep up on that. And another thing I use my smartphone for is taking reference pictures of how I've set something up. So,
Mm-hmm.
like, this is how I set up the tripod. This is where other things were, like the lights. And that way, if I need to set up that kind of a setup again, I can just check those reference photos instead of trying to go off memory. And sometimes you're not able to like tape down marks where everything was to make it exactly how it was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another thing that I use my smartphone for a lot.
Smart.
Haha.
Smartphone with smart user.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, well, so there you go. Depending on your situation, smartphone might be the perfect camera for you. Um, what other cameras? Let's like start like evolving up the price chart. So like, well, I mean, a new smartphone's like 2,000 bucks is pretty expensive, but
yeah, they vary in range.
yeah,
But GoPros, those are pretty
accessible, yeah.
accessible. There's a lot of them.
Yeah, so GoPro, like 5 years ago, GoPros were better for slow mo. Now, most like new smartphones do like an equal amount of slow mo. I think my camera does like 120 at 1080. GoPro is like, I remember, I remember 10 years ago, I wanted a slow mo camera because I'm a big sucker for
Hmm.
slow mo. 10 years
Hmm.
ago, slow mo cameras were like $7,000 and up. Smartphones weren't going past 1080/30, I don't think. And then GoPro was like, hey, 1080/120. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. And I remember when our workplace got that GoPro, remember it was snowing and we went outside and we have that clip of
Oh
this slow
yeah,
motion snowball to the face.
yeah. That
Oh
was a
yeah.
fun day.
And we tied the GoPro to the shovel and you were like shoveling. Shovel point of view. Shoveling snow.
Yeah. So the GoPro is a perfect camera for getting unique points of view.
Yeah, people use it in concerts, attaching it to instruments. You can get, yeah, very interesting, unique points of view, like on the windshield of a car, or like place where it would be uncomfortable or awkward or unsafe to operate a camera. You can just stick this with like a suction cup, and there it goes. It's also waterproof, right? So phones, I have no idea if my phone's waterproof. Uh,
Yeah. My phone's waterproof, but I think GoPro can go deeper and sustain it for longer
yeah.
than my phone. There's even the GoPro Session, that small square one. I've seen people use that as like an ice cube in their glass. They'll drop it in the bottom, fill it up
Oh,
with like a liquid, and like you
oh
get a
yeah.
point of view from the bottom of the
Product
glass.
videos, yeah.
Yeah,
You want to make an ad for a whiskey thing, yeah. Pour the ice cubes in, whiskey in. That's creative.
yeah.
On a budget.
Uh,
Yeah, that's
another,
cool.
I think another thing that GoPro really excels at is the last few iterations they've done. The stabilization they've managed to do is absolutely insane.
Yes.
Like they don't have a little gimbal in there. It's all like software based, but oh my goodness. Like what used to like you see the first few generations of GoPros, somebody puts it on their vehicle, it's just like unusable bumpiness. And now there's like I watch these like travel videos with people on like the end of a pole or on their forehead and they're like jumping around in the forest and stuff and it smooths it out so nicely and I'm like this is almost gimbal level but without all the hassle of an extra gimbal.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna rant for a quick second because you mentioned it's software based. In post editing, software takes forever to
Mm,
stabilize and then export,
yes.
and like every little frame that you extend or shrink the clip with, oh, gotta reanalyze everything. How can GoPro do it real time then? After Effects? Hmm? End of rant.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still stuck. Well, stuck. Like I'm still happy and content with my GoPro Hero 4. Um, but this Black Friday, I am looking to upgrade. Hopefully, if budget allows. Um, because yeah, GoPro. I've used GoPro in my business for a few shots. I used it for some behind the scenes because phones didn't used to have this. My new phone does have an ultra wide, like 15 mil kind of fisheye angle, so I can get like a really tight space. I can get the full shot. But before that, I had to rely on my GoPro to do the ultra wide. So I've used it for behind the scenes. Because it's something really quick that I can set up. I just like place it on something and like let it to record time lapses of like behind the scenes if you're setting up like a complex thing, or if your client's building something like a stage or a prop or something of that nature.
Hmm.
Um, or if you have to get an underwater shot, like some commercials, some products, boast the fact that they're waterproof. How do you show that? It's like, well, you could build like, you know, like a little plexiglass thing and shoot from behind it. But you know what? GoPro, done. Fast,
Mm.
quick. Um, Flexibility of choosing your angle, right? You want to get a low angle at the bottom of the pond? Do for it. Go for it. I've actually used GoPro for filming a wide angle in a tight space for a kind of like a party slash dance type of thing.
Mm. Hmm.
So, because they were just like, it was like seven pairs that were like doing like a what do you call it? It's not a like a waltz.
Okay.
And yeah, and they were like spreading across the whole like room that we were in. And it was just like, yeah, this room's wider than it is longer, and that is a nightmare for video. But GoPro helped me with the wide shot. So
Nice.
for me, GoPro was the perfect camera on at least a couple of occasions. My $600 GoPro had features that my $4,000 camera doesn't have.
Mm-hmm.
So in that situation, GoPro was perfect for me.
Awesome. Well, I think that pretty much covers GoPro.
Hmm.
Um, what's another camera, Dorin, that is another
Well,
level?
um, both me and you did BCIT, the new media design course. Were you did they make you buy a camcorder for the video project?
Yeah, it was required to get a camcorder. Luckily, I partnered up with Victor and he bought a camcorder, so I just
Yeah.
borrowed his. I didn't actually
I
buy one
remember that was
myself.
so awkward. They're like, okay, groups of 3 or 4, either one of you buys it or all 4 of you chip in, but then at the end of the term, like what do you do with it, right? Like if
Mm.
someone wanted to keep it after, then you just flat out bought it, which is what I did. I'm like, yeah, this is my camcorder and you guys are gonna borrow it for the project. And yeah, that was a camcorder with full manual control, and that was the perfect camera for teaching students because it was cheaper than other cameras. I don't think DSLRs were too huge on the market back then or too accessible price wise. But camcorder has something very special. It's got a built-in zoom, and that
And a
is
big
very
zoom
nice.
range, not just like,
Yeah,
18 to 55, like
yeah.
your typical kit lens.
No, yeah, like 18 to 350 at least. I think my last camcorder did up to 500
Wow.
millimeter equivalent. Um, And actually, yeah, that's the interesting thing. I learned on a camcorder at school, and I kept that camcorder, and I used it. I used it at church a lot. Camcorder was the perfect solution for a low budget nonprofit place like a church. Like, hey, we just need you to record the concerts. All right, camcorder, there you go. And I mean, camcorder is the perfect solution for family travel. You know, that kind of stuff. So I know a lot of people, and I've personally used like a camcorder for that kind of stuff. But business wise, I actually bought 2 camcorders when I went full time into freelance because I didn't have the money for mirrorless. I was hesitant to spend it on big DSLR mirrorless or cinema cameras because I was like
Mm.
too kind of unsure because of this question, like what is the perfect camera? Like I don't know. So I actually went with maximum utility. And a camcorder has that zoom we just mentioned. I specifically got the Sony AX53 because it had like a built-in little stabilizer thing
Mm.
within the lens. But it was a
Yeah.
smaller sensor because of that.
Mm.
But you know what? It offered stabilization, so I didn't need to get a gimbal. It was small form factor, so it's not a big shoulder camera. It's one of those handheld ones. And you know what? It did 4K. And it did 1080 at 120 frames a second, and it had like infrared, which I actually used once, oddly enough.
Ooh, what was
On
the situation there?
It was a theatrical production, and the whole gist of it was it was supposed to be dark, and the only light was like from like a flashlight or like it was a horror type of thing, and it was actually genius. It got you in the atmosphere, in the mood because it was completely quiet and they had the soundtrack of like whatever creepy stuff was going on and you didn't see anything, so the only guiding thing until the flashlight came on was the voice that and the person was like moving around. It was freaky, man. It was awesome. It was very immersive. But with infrared I could kind of see her.
So you like, did you have it just pitch black and then you like flicked on infrared and you could like, ooh, Tango spotted?
Yeah, exactly, that's how infrared works. So we did do that, but then they wanted a second take of, you know what, let's also get the actual mood. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
you
that's what I
don't
was
see
wondering.
it. Yeah. But for review purposes for the performer, they wanted to see how
Mm,
how they looked and what they did and how they could improve, you know.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, a camcorder had that unique application. Um, but I did move away from the camcorder eventually. I wish I kept one because that camcorder is perfect for family and run and gun quick little things, and also vlogging because it has a flip out screen. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, that was my my camcorder use. I did use it for my business in the first year of my business, and one of my best videos in that first year was done with a camcorder, and it did everything I needed to do. It did the zoom, it did the 4K, it did have not as good a shallow depth of field, but at a certain zoom level you did have some, so I was happy.
Hmm.
What about you, Nate? Have you have you ever used? Oh wait, you said Victor bought the camcorder at BCIT.
Yeah.
So you did you ever use a camcorder since?
I never bought my own. No,
Okay.
I went straight to a DSLR.
Ooh,
Um,
talk to me about DSLRs, Nate. What was
sure.
your first DSLR?
My first DSLR was the Canon 70D. So I got that one because it, with the certain STM lenses, it had really quiet stepper motors. So for autofocus, it was like quiet.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have that like type sound that other lenses had at the time. So
Mm-hmm.
I really like
So
that.
so lenses. I think that's the first key distinction between everything else we just talked about. DSLR is an interchangeable lens system.
Yes. And that really can make it the camera into whatever you want it to be, you know? If you're shooting wildlife, if you need to shoot things from far away, you can change that with the lens. If you're shooting a skateboard video where you want to get really up close to the action and you're like riding along and holding it nice and close, you get a fisheye lens. It really expands your capabilities. And I'd argue something else that you can do with a DSLR that you couldn't with the other things before, besides that flexibility, you can also get really high quality still photos. A lot of
Ooh,
DSLRs, were photo first, but when they
you're
started
right.
adding video capabilities, um,
Oh yeah,
you
that's
know,
true actually. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, cause yeah, when we were working at that workplace, we were using broadcast cameras, and I bought a DSLR for photos, and then I was like, oh, DSLR does video?
hmm
Yeah, I remember I was like perplexed by that. I'm like, oh, that's so cool. This is the way of the future.
yeah, it's a nice one-two punch with flexibility, being able to do, depending on the model, they got better as time went on, obviously, but
Hmm.
you could get a really decent video and also really nice photos. And then,
So that that's the perfect camera for versatility.
yeah, or for someone who wants to do, yeah, photo work and video work, that can be a really nice combo. It's maybe not as flexible video wise as a camcorder, but you unlock the whole photo side of things and you can get really nice portraits and astrophotography. I know
Mm.
GoPro, I think you did a few astrophotography time lapses, right? With your Hero 4?
No, I tried to,
Oh,
but it doesn't. No, it doesn't do a good job.
yeah.
So I don't think you can do more than 5-second exposures on the Hero 4.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't do more than 5 seconds. I would need at least 20 seconds for it to pick up anything, which is why I'm excited to get the newer GoPro because I think it would be able to get something.
Hmm. Yeah. So for me, camcorder was the perfect camera to learn photo and video and have that flexibility of different
You mean
lenses.
DSLR? You said
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
camcorder.
Doi, I mean, yeah, I meant DSLR, which for those who don't know what that stands for, it stands for digital single lens reflex camera.
Yes. Yes.
Phew, I got that right.
Woof, woof, woof.
I was like, oh no, do I need to look that up? Ah. Yeah. So the interchangeable lenses is the big jump for that.
Mm-hmm. And bigger sensors.
Yes, bigger sensors means you can capture more light per frame, which means you don't need as much light, which means you can film in darker places without having to flip on the infrared and feel like you're using night vision goggles and get like those glowing eyes of
Mm.
like people.
Also bigger resolution photos.
Yes,
Mm.
definitely. What about you? Did you found the video? function in your DSLR is kind of
Yeah,
a
I got
happy
a
surprise.
Nikon D3500. And here's the thing, because it was like a 400, $500 DSLR. That's the first DSLR that with that DSLR, which was my first DSLR, is the first astrophotography picture I took. And I did not expect to be able to get a Milky Way picture with that
Hmm.
on my first try. Like I wasn't even planning for it. I'm just like, oh, I'm just gonna take a long exposure of stars. And then an experienced photographer that was at the place I went to, he's like, oh, Milky Way's right there. Just point it here and put this setting. Like, oh, no way. And there you go. I've become obsessed.
Yeah, that was the start of the obsession for you.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I started taking a lot of pictures. Like technically freelance wise, no, I was doing video before photo, but with the DSLR, I started doing like photo stuff for like friends, family, and church, just like just to gain experience, you know. But DSLR is just on auto settings for a beginner, made for amazing pictures in good lighting conditions. So
Hmm.
for me, that was the perfect camera to pick up photography.
Yes. And also, you can learn a lot of principles with shooting in RAW with DSLRs, seeing how you can adjust the image and stuff. And now, RAW video obviously is a lot bigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like some of those principles can carry over. So that's another avenue you can explore with DSLRs that you can't with a camcorder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, DSLR was just it's just that shallow depth of field was so captivating. I was like, how is
Mm.
this so easy? How does this look so good and it's so easy to do? And DSLR, because of that, got me into kind of macro photography. I would like zoom in my lens as much as I could to get the shallow depth of field to get this little spider on this little screw. Just blow that up in post because of the resolution. I'm like, yeah, look at this little guy.
Totally.
Yeah, and I actually ended up using not that DSLR, but a higher end, like a full frame DSLR, for my video work before I bought my camcorders. So I used the DSLR, but DSLR has limitations. It had 20-minute recording limitation. Others have 30-minute limitations. Um, Getting audio into it, it's not really built for audio. The built-in audio is horrible and the preamps are bad. So,
Hmm.
but if you're just starting out and you just need to pass by with decent quality, not like amazing or professional, it does a decent job.
Hmm.
And I did do a few videos with my DSLR for clients, but I quickly realized that I need to get past the 30-minute recording limitation, and in a for an interview, I need two cameras. So what am I going to do? Am I going to buy another DSLR?
Hmm.
No, I went with camcorder because here's the thing. Camcorder you plug in to AC power. DSLR dummy batteries were made for them too, but it's like so many moving parts. And when I was starting out, I wanted a simple, quick plug and play type of rig. So for me, two camcorders made more sense than the one DSLR with a bunch of accessories.
Hmm. Definitely. Okay, so that's it for DSLRs, I think.
Hmm.
What's another type of camera that might have a different perfect scenario?
Well, before we go to that, I just want to mention that like mirrorless is like it's very similar to DSLR.
Hmm.
Isn't mirrorless like technically DSLM, like digital single lens mirror something?
I don't know actually. I know it doesn't have the reflex part because it's
Yeah.
not a physical shutter.
Hmm.
It's yeah, just like a sensor reading the information as it comes.
Yeah, digital
Um,
single lens mirrorless, also known
okay.
as a mirrorless camera. I remember reading about this a few months ago.
Um,
Um, yeah, so that's what we're currently using, right? Back in episode
yes.
whatever. one or two or three, I don't remember, where we're talking about our gear. We're using A7 IIIs, which are mirrorless. Um, I'm not completely sure mechanically what advantage that has. I just know that my A7 III does good in low light and has the what you call it, the fast frame rate. So I was looking at specs, not at, ooh, this technology's better because of this.
Hmm. Well, Doran, here are some bullet points for you. Mirrorless is lighter. It has
Okay.
less moving parts. It's quiet, or it's quieter, because it doesn't have to have that mirror flipping chink, right? You can turn on
Oh.
silent shooting mode and it's just like nothing.
Oh.
Another
Oh.
thing is if you're doing burst shooting with a DSLR, you would have constant black frames as the mirror flips down for the sensor to capture the image.
Mm-hmm.
Mirrorless, you can do burst mode and you keep seeing exactly what the camera is seeing. So it's an advantage if you're trying to
Mm-hmm.
capture something in burst mode and you don't have these all blackout, like stuttery images. You can actually see exactly what the sensor is seeing at the same time. Potential con compared to DSLR is with the electronic viewfinder, you're not seeing just a mirror's reflection of what the lens is seeing. You are seeing the digital version of that. So higher end mirrorless cameras now have a high enough refresh rate that it basically looks real. But some older ones, it would be limited to like say 60 frames per second. So technically, it would be a little bit of lag compared to what
Mm-hmm.
you'd see through a DSLR. One other thing with the mirrorless viewfinder is kind of a disadvantage slash advantage. You don't get that true to life, like as fast as light travels going to the mirror straight through the viewfinder, you get the electronic view of that because there's no mirror reflecting up to your viewfinder. You're seeing what the sensor sees. So disadvantages is there can be a little bit of lag in that in some older models, but the advantage of that is you can see a real-time preview of the depth of field and the exposure and everything. So you're seeing exactly what you're capturing, not a reflection of what your lens is seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's something that mirrorless has had to kind of overcome is those limitations. And now they have super high frame rate viewfinders, like like those high refresh rate monitors. Like some of them, I think, are like 240 hertz. So it's
Oh.
basically faster than you can process.
Mm-hmm.
So it looks real time.
Mm-hmm.
So I think those are some of the bullet points of mirrorless versus DSLR for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, I'm happy with staying with mirrorless. I don't even know if DSLRs are being produced anymore. I don't think so. I think they're pushed out of the market. Maybe for photography, DSLR is still there, but for video, and I like in my news feed for camera stuff, I don't see like, ooh, new DSLR. Like, no.
Yeah, mirrorless is definitely the trend and the way of the future that they're going to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Also, less moving parts to break.
Yeah.
You don't have that shutter flicking down. That's one less part that can break.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So past these, there's two more cameras that I'm familiar with, camera types that I'm familiar with. One is broadcast cameras, and we've used this at a previous workplace. A broadcast camera is basically like a big camcorder. Like this is the big,
Big three.
expensive news, what the news people use in game shows and all that, right? Um, because it's got like the built-in zoom on their built-in lens, but they're slightly higher spec, let's say.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so other than that, like we've used like entry level broadcast cameras, like not the big news ones, but the we used what Canon XF305s when they first came out in 2012,
Hmm.
and I remember I was so intimidated by all the buttons and stuff.
Yeah, a lot of them have like, built-in ND filters
Mm-hmm.
that you
Mm-hmm.
can, you've got your gain control, a lot more fine-tuning with the audio, better preamps. Um,
Several white balance presets. Yeah.
yeah, they have a lot more settings to fool around with.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when I was filming horse races, I had an older, big broadcast camera that goes over your shoulder, and they
Mhm.
had it rigged up where on the back there was the transmitter, so that would go live to the tower up top, and then I could just be free moving, no wires, a big battery, like a V mount battery on the back. So it was like you got the really good image quality, but all wireless transmission. You don't have to worry about recording. So depending on, I think it was the perfect camera for what they had me doing, which was uh, being able to move around quickly, step out onto the track, film the winning horse, and it just being able to wirelessly transmit to the live stream.
Yeah, easier with one of the broadcast cameras. Can't do that with a camcorder. Can't put a V mount in the transmitter there.
No, and with it so heavy on your shoulder, it's kind of like natural stabilization because it's
Mm-hmm.
so heavy. It's got so much weight to it that
That's
you
true.
can't make tiny shakes is too heavy.
Mm-hmm. That's cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, pretty much same points we covered in camcorder. And then I guess the last group would be cinema cameras. And those range wildly from like we've used what C100s would be I think the like entry level cinema camera leading to like Reds and Alexas, Aries, whatever the big stuff that the big studios use. Um, and yeah, those I feel like cinema cameras were around obviously before DSLR and mirrorless, but I feel like DSLR and mirrorless are trying to copy the cinematic look um with a small form factor. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think it's typically seen as cinema cameras are like the holy grail to most
Mm-hmm.
filmmakers. That's the look they want to go for. They want everything to look like a movie,
Mm-hmm.
you know, with their personal projects or wedding videos. Cinematic is like synonymous with wedding videos, it seems these days.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants like a goofy fisheye wedding. They want it to like look like their own movie and they're starring in it. And so they associate that with the image that a cinema quality camera can get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, cinema cameras just put your own lens, put your own settings for whatever. Fully customizable, like so much customization that can happen on a cinema camera. Um, and for movie places, that is the perfect camera for them. Broadcast obviously was perfect for you with the horses and for news and other stuff. Yeah. Um, so I can't think of any other cameras. I mean, there's like 360 cameras and VR stuff, but like I haven't um had enough experience with them to have an opinion much other than what I just read online, which is like, yeah, 360 is really good for virtual tours and real estate, especially with
Mm,
COVID.
hmm.
So
Definitely.
that's better than hiring a guy to like spin around and follow along something. Like, no, how about you let the viewer decide where to look and when to look?
It's like a point and click adventure.
Yeah,
Go to next room. Go to this room.
in real
Oh,
time. Yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, that's about it for cameras. Like a huge array of selection for different purposes depending on budget, form factor, etc. Um, really quickly, I think lighting can kind of go in this train of thought. Like there's different lighting tools and scenarios. The most obvious one being natural light. Like sometimes natural light looks better than if you're trying to stage lighting.
Hmm. It's
I
more like
feel
pleasing to the eye.
it is. Like especially if you want to go for like a romantic like sunset sunrise, it's just use an actual sunset or sunrise,
Hmm.
you know.
Yeah.
However, sometimes sunlight can be very harsh, especially if it's like noon and it's right above. It'll make like
Mhm.
really harsh. I actually saw a picture of like in Hawaii because it's perfectly like 90 degrees right above you. There's no shadows on certain objects and it just looks like a very poor game render, you know?
Someone turned the graphics down to like turned off the shadows.
Yeah, it looks like Quake 1 or something, like no shadows.
Oh, that's
Oh.
funny. Wait,
Like you've probably had shoots where you've just used natural light.
all the time, Doran, all the time.
Not all the
Yeah,
time. Maybe you have a light, don't you?
yeah, one light, but I've hardly ever used it honestly. Like,
Really?
especially if it's like outdoors. A lot of the stuff
Well,
I
yeah,
would shoot was
outdoors.
outdoors, right?
But I mean, sometimes there's an office thing that you can film, and maybe the light is shining at the right angle where it's like, yeah, my subject's perfectly illuminated. I don't want to illuminate anything else.
Yeah.
But other times it's like, oh, here's an interview. The CEO is up against a glass wall, and there's so much sunlight behind him. I have to light him up, otherwise he looks dark compared to the sunlight behind him.
Yeah.
So that's one time where it's like, oh, the first time I got screwed over because the client's like, oh yeah, can we film? We'll film like by the window so we can see downtown Vancouver or North
Oh.
Van. They had a view of North Van. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Can't expose for
Luminosity
the the subject and the bright sunny background.
completely blown out behind him.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, sometimes natural light is nice. Overcast, you don't have to worry about harsh lighting, but then there's no color to it, so I'm not a huge fan of overcast lighting. I don't know. I haven't found any like perfect scenario for it. It's
Mm,
better than super harsh lighting though.
yeah. And Doran, I think something else we should also say is a well lit video shot on an iPhone can look way better than a crappily lit video shot on a cinema camera. No
Yes.
matter how big your sensor and what your bit rate is, if it's not lit correctly or not exposed correctly,
Hmm.
it can be unsalvageable.
Yeah.
And the phone video can look way better. So like those commercials where it says like, shot on iPhone or shot on this whatever, it's like,
I saw behind the
sure,
scenes of that, yeah.
but like they're using five really amazing lights and it's
Yeah.
all perfectly placed and you got diffusion and stuff like that blocking out
Hmm.
the sunlight. It's like, okay, that's actually what makes it look amazing.
I realized that you know what, it took me a while, but I realized this was like a stumbling block for my creativity because I'm like, dude, I saw a review of this camera. I bought it and everything I film with it sucks. Because of lighting, because of what they filmed there were flame, bonfires, slow motion dogs jumping, skiing, like fascinating looking stuff. What am I filming? Like a tree? That doesn't look interesting, and it's not lit properly. It's not dramatically lit, or pristinely lit.
Mhm.
I actually, because after natural lighting, we come to like intentional, controlled lighting. And again, you can do it like really harsh or really soft and flattering. So, one video example from our first episode, that last video we worked on together at that previous workplace, the one where
Mm,
you dressed up as a monk and you tore up
I'm like,
a page, yeah, and blew the candle, we had
yeah.
harsh, controlled lighting. And I agree, if that was filmed with anything, the phone at the time or whatever, assuming like smooth shots, like no shaky handheld, it would have probably looked just as good as what we filmed on the Red. Granted, the Red had the slow motion, so we would have not had the slow motion part, but
Mm,
lighting wise, it would have looked dramatic in real time.
yeah.
So, yeah, there's applications for all of these things. What's your perfect lighting scenario? Depends what you're going for. Sometimes natural light will achieve it. Sometimes you got to bring out your own light and achieve what you want. But we're not gonna get into actual lighting equipment because I don't know. I feel like I'm not 100% knowledgeable on that in order to tackle it right now. Maybe later.
Yeah, it's a whole nother can of worms.
Yeah.
No, we think we're just sticking to the basics for now, saying yes, there's the perfect lighting depending on what mood you're trying to convey or
Mm-hmm.
what you're trying to achieve. Yeah, if
Mm-hmm.
you try and shoot like a scary horror movie in an overcast daylight, it's probably not going to be the mood you want.
Unless they're going for like really great desaturated depressed horror.
Oh, exactly. So,
See, there you
there
go.
might be an
Maybe
application.
that's what I'll use overcast lighting for. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Someone that's like losing hope.
Doran's like, autobiographical film?
Oh, you're getting married? Ball and chain. Overcast. Perfect.
uh,
I'll give you the S log files. I'm not even gonna color
you're
grade
not going to
this.
touch him.
Not gonna be pretty, man.
That's like the new trend is shooting in like raw and not touching it at all.
I have given a wedding client raw upon request. I don't know what they're
mm,
gonna do with it because it was also super shaky. But
mm.
so maybe they'll appreciate the edit, or they'll be like, "Holy cow, this guy's an idiot." Good thing the final video doesn't look as bad as the raw. But anyway, what's as a finishing thought, Nate? What would your ideal camera, like a slightly unrealistic camera? So not what's currently on the market, but what
Mm.
do you think in the next 3 years the perfect camera would be? Like, let's say if the technology advanced enough in 3 years, what would your requirement be?
Doran, you know what I want? I
What?
want a light field camera. Now, do you know what a light field camera is?
I think you mentioned it a few years back. It was that thing that didn't really take off, or Google bought it out or something.
Yeah, so they right now there was a few consumer facing products and it would just do photos. But the thing with a light field camera is it's not just capturing images in pixels, it's capturing every single light ray that comes into the camera. And what that enables you to do with a photo, for example, is you capture that light field and you can choose where the camera was focusing after you took the picture.
Oh yeah.
So if I quickly take a picture like this, I can then, after the fact, have it focus on the water bottle or focus on my face or focus on the background
In
because it's
post.
in post because it captured all those different light rays. So you can just choose which light rays are like where the focus point is. So it's kind of sci-fi technology, but
Mm-hmm.
um, maybe in 5 years there will be a video equivalent of that. And imagine shooting
Didn't
video.
wasn't there a video equivalent a few years back though?
Yes, but it wasn't like a consumer-facing product. It came
Oh
with like a
no.
giant server rack that you needed
Oh
because,
yeah.
like, obviously these these files are a little bigger. You're not just capturing a slice; you're capturing like everything that came into the camera, how far away the light
I,
bounced,
I
and all this kind
remember
of
you showing me
information.
this video and I was blown away by the fact that you don't need a green screen anymore because of the light field they could select a specific distance and only show the light coming from that distance.
Yeah,
And that was just terrifying. Like they can fix so many videos now. Holy cow. Don't let Reddit get a hold of that technology, please.
yeah. So, and besides being able to selectively choose things without using a green screen to isolate it, you can also change the aperture and the shutter speed after the fact. If you want more blurred out backgrounds, you can just change it on a dial. If you want it to look more high frame rate action jarring, you can change that all in post because you're capturing absolutely all the information that's coming in and then you can just like make adjustments after the fact of what you want to just show in the video. So
So
to me, that is like the dream unrealistic camera that maybe in 5 or 10 years there'll be one on the market.
wow, sounds like someone's using cheat codes. God
Right?
mode.
There's no more focus pullers. You don't need green screens anymore. It's just it would be a huge um, whole paradigm shift.
Yeah. Wow. Well, that sounds really amazing. I wasn't thinking that far ahead. I just wanted something that gave me like 8K 120 or 4K 240 and you know what I want? I actually want yeah, I'm happy with the current camera technology. I'm okay if current cameras stay as is for the next 5 years. What I would want is lens improvements. Like I want a 18 to 500 f1.8 lens.
Hmm.
This is not a technology issue as much as it is an optics issue. I am aware of that.
Yeah, a physics issue.
Yes. Like physically we can do that, but it will be the size of a big like observatory telescope, which you cannot put on your small little mirrorless. Or you can, but it won't work on your gimbal anymore. You'll need like a evergreen truck to transport it and it'll get stuck in the canal. Anyway, I don't know. I wish there would be some kind of breakthrough through lenses. That's what I would unrealistically want. I would
Mm.
want someone to bend optics for me.
Make it so you have like that one camcorder advantage. Give it to the DSLR or like the mirrorless.
Mm-hmm.
That giant zoom range at like f1.8.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Uh, yeah. So there you go. I think we talked. Oh man, we explored a bunch of. Hopefully, we help someone out if they're like, "What is the perfect camera for you?" Well, what is your context? What do you want to get out of it? We kind of brushed on a lot of situational uses for all of these camera types. So maybe that should be a clear indication that we've used all of these in different situations. There is no permanent perfect camera for all scenarios. Not yet. Maybe this light field
Mm.
thing,
Some light field camera.
shenanigans. So yeah, really think hard of what you want to achieve and what's your budget and how you want to achieve it. Form factor and versatility and all. Um, you know what, Nate? We haven't done Romanian word of the week in a while, and I feel like we've had enough Romanian words. I'm gonna introduce a new concept to the podcast. Episode 19 is gonna
Oh,
be a paradigm
turning
shift,
point.
as you said. Yeah.
All right.
Um, have you heard of? Let me make sure I'm not butchering it. A malaphor.
Metaphor. Is that like a metaphor?
Sort of. It's like two metaphors kind of welded together in a abomination, nonsensical, humorous result. So let me give you an example. So,
Okay.
um, like either metaphors or proverbs or popular sayings. So, like for example, there's the saying of "We'll cross that bridge when we get to it." Or if you're having an argument with someone and it's ruining the relationship, you say that you burnt that bridge. So combining the
Mhm.
two, you can say, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it.
Okay. I get you.
So it's like, oh, this sounds familiar, but then you're like, what do you mean we'll burn that bridge when we get to it? Like, yeah, it's funny that way.
Yeah.
So it's I don't know, it's my new hobby. I love coming up
Mm.
with metaphors, and this is like an easy, good one. So for next week, Nate, you come up with one, and I'll come up with one, and we'll have a nice little giggle at the end. But
Okay.
until next week, whatever, we'll burn that bridge when we get to it.
Mm. Hope it's not rocket surgery. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. You just made one.
Yes.
Well, that's a wrap for today's podcast. Thank you for watching and listening. Leave a comment below, or wherever it is on the page
Above,
above.
beside.
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, Dorin, I actually I'll try and think of the perfect camera to film Joe.
I'm not gonna fall for that. I'm sorry, Nate. You could have lined that up better.
Well, and be sure to subscribe to not miss an episode of the Nate and Doran podcast and these terrible jokes. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you use to listen to podcasts. This has been Nate and Doran. Thank you for watching and listening.